So I told him, I said, son, I grew up in a farming town in Southern California. I said, if you were a bad teammate, you didn't make grades, you're partying, you're doing stupid things, that I would tell you, get home, you deserve it. But I said, you got shit on. Mm-hmm. But I said, you got a choice to make. You can be sad for a half a day and that's it. Wipe your tears, boy, and get ready. But I said, no one wants to be around someone that's a victim, all right? No one wants to be around someone that smells like shit. So I said, you have a choice to make. You could sit and be that person. I said, or doggone it, you could shovel that in the back of your truck and use it for fertilizer. That's what good farmers do. They use shit and use it for fertilizer for growth. And I said, set the school's fight song to your wake-up call every morning at 5. You get up when everyone else is sleeping and you become a player that no one else said you could become. And we cried together. I told him how proud of him I was. And this part, when you ask me, what do I do for my son? I love him. He's named after me. He's everything to me. And the night before he came home from that college for Christmas, all the kids were getting home. They were getting to go see their family for Christmas, brought a little backpack home. This kid had to pack up an apartment. He thought he was gonna be there 4 years. He packed up 5, 6 boxes. He comes home, he's defeated. The night before, I had a long list of things that I thought me as an ex-major leaguer needed to address with my son. What were distractions? What were things that you learned? Looking back, are they things that you could have done any better? Doggone it, I had a long list. And I was sitting in my office, I'm all excited to pick up my boy that morning. And I just began to cry. I'm like, Lord, my son doesn't need to be a freaking coach, a mental skills coach or an ex-player. He just needs me to be dad. And I literally, it was like midnight. All the kids were sleeping, the 5 other kids. They're all excited, big brother's coming home. My wife prepared the house, Shara. So everyone's all excited about MJ coming home. And I'm like, man, what did the prodigal father do when his son came home? He was waiting out front and ran towards him. He put a robe on him, put a ring on him, gave him new shoes, threw a party. And he didn't doggone give him a list and say, why'd you live that way? He was just a great dad. So I just said, that night at midnight, I just started crying. And I said, all I'm gonna do is tell him how proud of him I am. And I've never had that conversation with him about the car ride home. Looking back when you were at that school, what could you have done different? I just said, boy, I love you, man. I'm so happy you're home. And every day that we've been home, he's been redeemed and loved and not feeling the pressure of getting punched in the gut and getting sent home for Christmas, never to be welcomed back. So it's real. That ride home is real. Getting a phone call saying, Dad, I'm coming home and my life's tough right now. That's real. But as a father, I played baseball a lot to make my parents proud. And it was paralyzing at times because you go 3 for 4 and man, that 4th at bat was a strikeout, man. Were my parents proud? And I told MJ, man, I don't ever want you. I want you to play with freedom. So just know that I'm gonna throw you a party when you come home. And it's great. So anyways, that car ride home or that phone call, it's tough. It's tough to be a parent when you look at little Jack someday and he'll be wearing number 35, hitting bombs, and maybe he has a rough game and you wanna say something and impart your wisdom on him, but sometimes you gotta doggone bite your tongue and just let your kids know that you love them.
Sweeney Dog's coming from a dinner now with some minor league guys.
Yeah. In my role with the Royals, obviously Anthony knows, and when Haas was there and Pete, my job is simply to help these young men be the best they can be on and off the field. So when I first met Haas, he was our top prospect. He and a couple of young guys named Mike Moustakis and Lo Kane, and I simply just walked with him. And he made his debut. I'm the old guy that's. I wasn't at the stadium when you made your debut, but I'm tearing up watching the game live going, man, I was blessed to be a part of his journey, and been doing that now for 13 years. And my oldest son, MJ, he wears number 35 because of you. And it's so cool. It's a blessing that you could do something where you could pour into the life of a young man, and then that young man becomes someone that your boys look up to. So yeah, tonight I took out a couple of our young prospects, and
we used to have our dinner every spring.
Big league dinners.
Wow. Big league dinner. So listen to this crew. It was me and Gerard Dyson would live together every spring.
Yeah.
It was me, Dyson, Art Stewart,
Uncle George,
Uncle George Brett, Jason Kendall, Mike Sweeney.
Wow.
And we would go to the same Italian restaurant. So Art was a longtime scout with the Royals. And
Yeah, he was.
Art, I mean, he's no longer with us, but Art lived everything, eat, sleep, baseball, 24/7, cared about us all so much, can go back to a high school game that he watched you when something happened. So these dinners were incredible.
Imagine.
And having guys like him and Kendall, these guys to look up to, it was always like me and Dice felt the need that like, we want to be these veteran guys at one point and have young guys to eventually go to dinner with and kind of take them under their wing. And now it's a full cycle of life because being a new dad now with Jack,
Yes.
I look at MJ now and he's sending me videos from his college games and I'm like, man, MJ might be that guy. And then Jack will be looking up to him one day. So it's a full circle.
That's
great.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. It sounds like it's been wonderful having these conversations as we're talking about baseball, pitch selection, mechanics. But what I'm hearing here, it's more of like the heart, the human, the person over the player. Have you always, that's something that's always been important to you?
It was very important to me. As a young player, I had guys that I looked up to, Royals like Jeff Montgomery and Mike McFarland, guys that taught me the ropes and showed me how to be a good man off the field, but how to be a leader in the clubhouse. And up until last spring training, I was the last captain of the Kansas City Royals. So it was something that I felt was important, was to pass that torch on to your former teammate. Now we call him El Capitan, Salvador Perez.
Went from the Nino
But
to
yeah, El
Capitan.
Nino, yeah, that's right.
I love that.
And but those are the things that, you know, when we'd go out to dinner with Haas, when I was a veteran, you know, the retired player setting the example for Haas, I'd tell him, hey man, until you sign big money, like these dinners are on me. Obviously, when you go, he's like, "Hey, man, it's on me now." Yeah. when he left Kansas City, but you know, George Brett says it best: "Once a Royal, always a Royal." And Haas, what you did for Kansas City, and you know, little kids wear your number still today in Kansas City because of who you are and the mentor and the leader that you became. And I know you went on, you know, played some other places, but you're always going to be a Royal. And it gives me goosebumps talking with Jeff Davenport about having an Eric Hosmer day and that to see Kauffman Stadium packed with, you know, people that adore you and are grateful for that. You helped bring a championship to the Emerald City of Kansas City. And I'll never forget seeing those 800,000 people screaming, going nuts.
Man, that was incredible.
On that championship that, Pete, you were there too.
No, I was not. I came
You
the
were
year
not?
after. I wish I was. No.
That's what we had.
I saw everything, dude.
You were the year after, yeah. And like you always, like you've been saying, we had that family atmosphere in Kansas City. And even, you know, I went on to San Diego after that, and Sweeney lives in San Diego.
Yes.
So it was comforting because, you know, part of that family, you were out there and you
Right.
offered a room to stay at your house, dinner, home cooked meals, whatever.
Anytime.
Sue, you know, being on the road all the time, to have somebody like that when you're not in your hometown, it's just so comforting, and it's nice to have that. And when you're in a different city.
That is so true. We, Haas and I were talking about fountains and drains about a year or so ago. I mean, Travis Kelce talked about it as well, but we talk about having fountains in your life, people who are fountains of their best skill set or their talent, their gift, whether it be a fountain of peace, a fountain of perspective, a fountain of positivity, of whatever it may be, and surrounding yourself with those people versus the drains. People always complain and make excuses, and
Right.
it's neat. It sounds like you've been a fountain for so many players, and it seems like it's like mutual. Like you view them as fountains as well.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Well, you pour into someone, and you fill them up, and then now you get to see them fill up the lives of others, like you've done with my son MJ. He loves you and adores you. But one of the coolest, you know, probably things that it came full circle was I met your beautiful wife Casey.
Mm-hmm.
I brought my kids out. We're watching a Padres game. We're sitting down in the rich people seats. They weren't mine. We had tickets from a friend.
You were there quite often, though, buddy.
We were there quite often. And after the game, Haas would come over and you know, throw a ball to my son, and signed his jersey one night after a game, and he treasures that. He's got it hanging on his wall. He loves Haas. And I was sitting down, and a beautiful pregnant woman sits next to me. Shara and I, we have 6 children, 22 years of marriage. Our children are 19 down to 4. And unfortunately, on when Haas got married, we were unable to travel to it, although it was a blessing to be invited. And so out of the blue, I just thought, you know what can I give Haas and Casey that would be something they'd cherish forever? So I got them personally made Bibles with their names on them. And I thought, you know what, it's a season when the time they can deliver them, so let me just send them to the clubhouse. So apparently, I didn't know. Haas got a box, there was no return label. And it was just like, oh, sweet. Gave it to Casey. So we were sitting up in the stands, and beautiful Casey's pregnant with Jack. And I didn't know, I just thought there was a beautiful pregnant woman sitting in the rich people seats next to me. And she says, so, hey, your kid's here. What's your name? And I said, you don't know me. I'm just an old guy that used to play baseball many years ago. And she said, oh, that's great. And I said, what's your name? She's like, I'm Casey. I'm blessed to be married to Eric Hosmer. I said, I love your husband. Like he's like a little brother to me. And this kid is idolized, and we started laughing and joking. I said, hey, I want to ask you, my wife and I really wanted to come to your wedding. But unfortunately, with 6 kids, it was just unfortunate. We couldn't make it. And I said, but I wanted to tell you, I sent you guys a wedding present, and I don't know if you got it. And Casey's eyes welled up in tears, and she said, was it personalized Bibles with our names inscribed on them? And she had tears in her eyes. I said, yeah. She said, we've wondered for the last year and a half who sent us those. And she said, now I know.
Wow.
And I said, hey, it didn't need to have a return label, but I'm glad that you and little Jack and Haas know that I loved him enough not to just send you a steak knife set, but to send you something that's going to be with you for the rest of your life.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
Nobody more positive than Sweeney Dog. And something we always talk about on here on the youth side with the youngsters coming up. It's such a different world now with social media and how they're being judged and rated individually. Someone being so positive and now going through that process. MJ's in college now, like I said, and going through that process, because it's different than how you came up. Literally, I came up. So
even me, like I wasn't long after you, but it was way different now.
Yeah, and that adaptability, even in the big leagues, to be able to adapt to new young rookies, and that's something you did so well, playing in older years in your life. So on the youth side, with MJ's team and those kids, what's the message? Just to continue to have fun and just positive, nothing but positivity. Yeah.
So I coached. I started an organization called the San Diego Saints, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to teach kids how to play baseball, love the game, and represent our Lord that gave us these great gifts. And I don't charge a penny to have the kids play. And man, the coaches would love, like that we'd play against. They're like, man, how do you guys do this? And I said, well, it's just simple. You create an atmosphere of love and accountability. You hold the kids accountable, but doggone it, you're gonna be held to a standard. And I read a book entitled Season of Life, and it's an incredible story of a Pulitzer Prize winning author who was a ball boy for the Miami Dolphins in their perfect season. And he was supposed to write a story on the perfect season in Miami. And he says, I'm going to start with this guy named Joe Ehrman. And Joe Ehrman was a big lineman. And this little kid, he said he was a Jewish towel boy. And they called him Velcro because his hair was a little thick, little Jewish boy, sweet kid. And he said, I'm going to start with Joe Ehrman. So Joe Ehrman's this 300-pound white lineman. And he's coaching in Baltimore, Maryland. So he takes a bus down or the train down from New York, goes to Baltimore, Maryland. He's like, I'm going to set up this meeting with Joe Ehrman. And anyways, to make a long story short, he bangs on the door, and this big 300-pound white man introduces himself. Hey, man, good to see you, little, Velcro. How you growing up, man? How's family? Oh, we got practice coming up in about 10 minutes, so let's go. So the story is about this author that comes in and sees Joe Ehrman. They go out to practice. There's 60 kids, mostly African-American, underprivileged, inner-city children. And Joe Ehrman starts practice. He says, young men, he says, what's your job here? To love each other, coach. And what's my job? To love us, coach. And it was a simple reminder of your job is to love your brother enough that you're willing to die for him, like you did for your teammates while you're still loved in Kansas City. And even in San Diego, everyone refers to you as the greatest teammate they ever had. And then, but also the coach loves him enough to stinking love him, but enough to kick him in the rear when they need it and hold him accountable. And that's kind of the premise. All the coaches that coach in my organization, I have them read that book. And I'm like, look, who, if you told a kid, hey man, you're going to go out and play a game that's really fun, and your coach is going to cheer you on and hold you accountable and push you to heights you've never thought was possible. And I tell the parents, I say, doggone it, if your kid doesn't want to play baseball, it's not going to be my fault. It's going to be your fault. Because what kid doesn't want to be encouraged? And I tell the kids, man, get those pants dirty because I don't know who's going to do it. It might be mom, but a magic pill might happen. But man, when baseball practice comes up the next day, those pants are going to be sparkling white, ready to go. So it's just a matter of kind of passing the torch, whether it's to a 20-year-old future superstar in Kansas City or a 12-year-old little boy that wants to play baseball to make his mom and dad proud. Like, I just love pouring into people through the game of baseball. So simple.
That's awesome. I what I love about that is just being, first of all, the frame, that sounds like an amazing book.
It's incredible.
And it reminds me of an author named James Clear. He wrote the book Atomic Habits. It's an outstanding book, but he has a line in there that I love. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes behavior. And what you're describing to me is creating, as a leader, creating an environment where you're not, the question isn't, you're not asking yourself, how do I motivate my players? How do I create an environment where they are loved and inspired and they motivate themselves? And so as I think about youth sports, having kids or myself and being around youth sports, I have experienced, or I've seen a lot of times where the biggest stumbling block to youth sports in many cases are the parents, the moms and dads who love their kids more than anything, love their kids. However, they can become that stumbling block. They specialization too early, too harping on results over the process. In your organization with the Saints, what do you do to help the parents help their kids?
Well, two quick things. So I'll tell you. The first thing I tell the parents, you think of 3 things that you like that your kid did today in the game, and those are the 3 things that you're going to talk about on the way home. If there's things that need to be addressed, I'm talking to them, not you. That's why you pay me nothing to coach your kids.
Really quick before the second one.
Yeah.
What just happened here? What just happened here? So when you were just saying that, they just slapped each other.
I just gave him a slap
Yes.
because of the 3 things that just brought me back some, like, it just seems to be a theme of, there's a lot of people that are very grounded and have the same attitude as you that think about 3 things every day. And it seems to be a theme of these 3 things. And it's something that I never thought about. I was just always a guy that would worry about what the closest thing that made me worry was. And then I never had a broader picture or a broader thought until basically I retired from baseball. And now that I'm sitting here having these conversations and hearing someone like Bobby Witt Jr.
Isn't he refreshing?
Oh my
So
God.
Justin Sue was a process and development coach. He's been with the Rays the last
with
couple
the
of
Rays,
years.
yep.
Now he's kind of part-time, but not in the dugout every day, but still with the Rays. And we talked to Bobby Witt Jr. yesterday, and just hearing the dialogue he had with his father every day, who played, all the way up until he's now in the big leagues from Little League, and him jotting down his 3 positives, his 3 negatives from the game. And everything about that kid is, as someone who's going to be connected to Kansas City forever now, could not be happier for the organization for them to lock down somebody like that, and that guy be the role model for these young kids in Kansas City. I mean, this kid was so
impressive.
Refreshing, impressive.
Yep.
I mean, the type of person you want to hang your hat on and say, this guy's going to be the crown in Kansas City for years to
It's
come.
not just that. He's talented.
Super talented.
He's got skills like you. His ratings are off the charts.
Yeah,
He's
incredible.
And he's going to get better every single year. And what a great place to do it, like Kansas City.
Yeah, and just to put a cap on Bobby, so after his rookie year, the smart people on TVs we watch, we're not going to call anybody out, but they said, oh, he's rated as the worst shortstop in baseball. So he called Jose Alguacil, our infield coach, and said, look, I want to become the best shortstop in baseball. His numbers went from worst to top 3 in baseball. He had a chance to win a Gold Glove. Then he goes out, hits 30 home runs, steals almost 50 bases, drives in almost 100 runs. And the kid's 23 years old. And he's the most humble kid. It's impressive, like you all said, but really refreshing as well to see a superstar, raised the way he was by a major league dad and just a great family.
I'm sorry for interrupting you. Earlier, you said there was 2 points about the parents. You said the first one, hey, be positive. I'll share anything that needs to be corrected.
Yeah, and then the second one, I said, hey, I was starting practice like, hey, who wants to get hit by a pitch? And they're like, I said, look, I led the American League and get hit by a pitch one year. It stunk, but I didn't like it, but it's just part of the game. And I knew I was getting a base. So I said, on the San Diego Saints, okay, if you get hit by a pitch and you run down that first base line, you get ice cream after the game. And if you don't cry, you get toppings, as many as you want. And I said, now listen, if your parents don't take you to ice cream within 24 hours, they are forbidden from watching you play for 2 weeks. So the kids were like, oh, doggone it. So sometimes there was some kids that were like diving into the play. I'm like, hey, Tony, your job is to hit the ball over the fence, all right? But if they hit you, it's an accident. But you get ice cream. But yeah, and then I teach kids about accountability. I said, look, if you want to know why you're not batting third and playing short, come talk to me. But if your parents talk to me first, you're benched on the team for 2 weeks. You're benched. Teaching kids accountability, and it's so cool.
So good.
Like a kid comes up and, hey, coach, how come I'm not playing shortstop? Hey, okay, on our team, if you lined up everybody at shortstop, what number shortstop would you be on the team? Probably 8th. Okay, good. So you're gonna keep working harder. We're gonna get you some scrimmage reps, but you got to keep working harder. That's accountability. And then the kid that wants, why am I batting 12th every game, coach? Hey, when we're hitting every day, how would you rate yourself as a teammate? How would you rate yourself as a hitter on the team? Are you better than these 11? Probably not. Okay. Well, if you keep working, take a couple hundred swings a day. If you do, accountability, I'll move you up in that lineup, but you're gonna earn it. And then when these kids go from 12th to batting 6th, they feel a sense of, man, doggone it, I earned it. I didn't get there because my dad told the coach I'm going to quit. But man, it's a idea of accountability and teaching kids that at a young age. It's incredible.
As a part of it, I love what you said after the game, what you as a parent should say to your child after the game. It doesn't matter. It could be sports. It could be dance, performance. The words that you say to your kids, I can't tell you how many times I've had a youngster sit in my office or we're talking or whatever, and they say these self-defeating words about themselves. And I said, do you believe that? They're like, no, my dad says I'm that, or my mom says I'm that. And you end up realizing that the child's self-talk, the words that mom and dad or their guardians constantly say to the child becomes that child's self-talk. So speak powerfully, speak productively. And obviously it doesn't mean coddle, and there's that accountability. But the point, what I love is, so there's a guy named Eduardo Salas. He's an organizational performance psychologist, and he works with NASA. And he's training this little group, not little, but this group of astronauts to get them ready to go to Mars. And his job is to teach team effectiveness and team cohesion. And one of the things that he's telling them, one of the key factors to enhance performance for a team effectiveness comes in the debrief after trainings or after any kind of performance. What is said when it's over? You get together, let's talk about it. What was it good? What can we learn? What do we need to do better? Even if it's small, even if it's tiny. And I think one of the most important conversations that parents have with kids is that drive home after the game. Yeah. What do you say and what do you choose not to say in that conversation could have lasting impact. As a parent, you might forget it, but your kids, you might not remember it, but your kids won't forget it.
That's what's so fun and interesting now being a dad is like, when I'm the veteran guy, the older guy in the clubhouse, if there's some tough love that has to go on and there's some maturity and growth that's going to happen and I'm going to teach somebody, a young kid, it's okay for him to be mad at me for a couple days. But if I know that he's going to, in the long run, it's going to be good for him and he's going to come around and we'll be good. But with Jack, it's like, I don't want to give up those 2 days of him being mad at me. So it's a whole different like mindset on how do I do this? Like how did you go about with MJ? I'm sure there was times where maybe there was some tough love and some lessons to be learned in some situations, but
how do you find the balance? How do you find the balance to be able to do both?
I just always wanted to make sure that I didn't ruin my son's love for baseball.
Right.
I'll give you a quick example, and I don't want to ever disparage anyone's name, and so I'll hold things out, but MJ out of high school, wearing number 35, hitting home runs and wanting to be the next Eric Hosmer, committed to a big D1 school. And he's all excited, and draft day came. Your old team, the Padres, called and said, hey, we want to sign MJ. So I called the coach and said, hey, coach, what are your thoughts? Going to your question, how do I handle MJ? And the coach says, oh, man, we think MJ's going to be a big bat. He's going to come in and be a big, help us get to the College World Series. And I said, well, coach, he's got a chance to sign with a professional team. What advice would you give? Send him here, and in a couple of years, man, he's gonna be a first-round pick. And I was like, man, that's great. I said, coach, but before I hang up, I want to make sure that, you guys have a bit of a reputation for bringing in a lot of kids. And at Christmas break, his freshman year, you send out kids home in junior colleges. I want to make sure that's not going to happen with MJ. He said, well, he's a scholarship player. Unless he's partying and doing drugs and not making grades or being a bad teammate, like, you don't have to worry about that. So I said, okay, it's my son's decision. So I presented that to MJ. He says, oh, Dad, I want to go to college. I want to go to College World Series and win a World Series. So fast forward about 4 or 5 months, week before Christmas break, my son calls me crying. Said, Dad, I just got cut. I said, how'd you get cut? You're on scholarship. And he said, well, Dad, the coach described me. He said, I'm the best teammate in the locker room. That's what he taught him to be. And I'm the hardest worker in the locker room. I'm the hardest worker on the team. But he said they're bringing in a 6-year senior from a transfer and they don't have a spot for me. And I said, well, son, you're on scholarship. They can't cut you. He said, I told him that. I said, Coach, just let me be a red shirt. I'll sit on the bench and cheer my heart out. I love my teammates. I don't want to go anywhere. Don't cut me, please. And he said, well, if you stay, you're on scholarship, you can go to school here. But you ain't going to be allowed in the locker room. You won't be allowed in the weight room. You won't be allowed in the hitting facility. You won't be allowed to eat food with your teammates. And he said, Dad, they're going to make my life a living hell if I stay. So I told him, I said, son, I grew up in a farming town in Southern California. I said, if you were a bad teammate, you didn't make grades, you're partying, you're doing stupid things, that I would tell you, get home, you deserve it. But I said, you got shit on. Mm-hmm. But I said, you got a choice to make. You can be sad for a half a day and that's it. Wipe your tears, boy, and get ready. But I said, no one wants to be around someone that's a victim, all right? No one wants to be around someone that smells like shit. So I said, you have a choice to make. You could sit and be that person. I said, or doggone it, you could shovel that in the back of your truck and use it for fertilizer. That's what good farmers do. They use shit and use it for fertilizer for growth. And I said, set the school's fight song to your wake-up call every morning at 5. You get up when everyone else is sleeping and you become a player that no one else said you could become. And we cried together. I told him how proud of him I was. And this part, when you asked me, what do I do for my son? I love him. He's named after me. He's everything to me. And the night before he came home from that college for Christmas, all the kids were getting home. They were getting to go see their family for Christmas, brought a little backpack home. This kid had to pack up an apartment. He thought he was going to be there 4 years. He packed up 5-6 boxes. He comes home. He's defeated. The night before, I had a long list of things that I thought me as an ex-major leaguer needed to address with my son. What were distractions? What were things that you learned? Looking back, are there things that you could have done any better? Doggone it. I had a long list. And I was sitting in my office. I'm all excited to pick up my boy that morning. And I just began to cry. I'm like, Lord, my son doesn't need to be a freaking coach, a mental skills coach or an ex-player. He just needs me to be dad. And it was like midnight. All the kids were sleeping, the 5 other kids. They're all excited. Big brother's coming home. My wife prepared the house, Shara. Everyone's all excited about MJ coming home. And I'm like, man, what did the prodigal father do when his son came home? He was waiting out front and ran towards him. He put a robe on him, put a ring on him, gave him new shoes, threw a party. And he didn't doggone give him a list and say, why'd you live that way? He was just a great dad. So I just said, that night at midnight, I just started crying. And I said, all I'm going to do is tell him how proud of him I am. And I've never had that conversation with him about the car ride home. Looking back when you were at that school, what could you have done different? I just said, boy, I love you, man. I'm so happy you're home. And every day that we've been home, he's been redeemed and loved and not feeling the pressure of getting punched in the gut and getting sent home for Christmas, never to be welcomed back. So it's real. That ride home is real. Getting a phone call saying, Dad, I'm coming home and my life's tough right now. That's real. But as a father, I played baseball a lot to make my parents proud. And it was paralyzing at times because you go 3 for 4 and man, that 4th at bat was a strikeout, man. Were my parents proud? And I told MJ, man, I don't ever want you. I want you to play with freedom. So just know that I'm gonna throw you a party when you come home. And it's great. So anyways, that car ride home or that phone call, it's tough. It's tough to be a parent when you look at little Jack someday and he'll be wearing number 35, hitting bombs, and maybe he has a rough game and you wanna say something and impart your wisdom on him, but sometimes you gotta doggone bite your tongue and just let your kids know that you love them. it's an inherent, I think, natural emotion in every young boy to want their dad to say, son, I'm proud of you, right? We're all there.
Yeah, so
And,
we talk about this, like, you're around baseball guys all the time. The way we deal with failure, we become used to dealing with it because it happens so much. We become vulnerable. We do it in front of a lot of people on a nightly basis. But like you said, when it's something, you know, with your son, it's something that's uncontrollable. It's like, it's a whole new feeling because it's you always feel like you can do something. And at that point in time, when he's done wrong, it's, you know, it's so hard to stay the process right there and not react and get emotional.
Have you seen any of Travis Snyder's new videos that he's been putting out? He talks about things like this. He talked about specifically that a child's value shouldn't be tagged to his sports performance. And I just thought, man, that's incredible, especially in today's age where you see all these travel ball teams and these kids that are so specialized, and it's so, like you say all the time, it's so individualized and everything's put value on what you do on the field. And when they come home, if it's not a welcoming place, then it's got to be a tough environment for kids that are 8 that are nationally ranked now.
That's right.
It's insane to me.
8 years old.
8 years old and you're nationally ranked. Like, what?
What travel ball team is Jack playing on?
So,
2, 3 U.
He's already doing
we're
squats.
already mapping out that process on how we're going to travel, and we get the bus all painted up and all that type of stuff. But so obviously I don't know much about that amateur world now that I've been, you know, kind of away from it for a while. But a lot of the kids that are in my high school or play for my former coach in high school, there's kids that are in 7th grade, 8th grade committing to a college. And I don't know if something's changed about it, but to me, don't these kids limit their options? Why would you limit to one option and commit when you're 4 or 5 years away? And so much can change in 4 or 5 years. And I get it. It's something that they want to be proud of. They can go on their social media page and put, you know, I'm committed to this school. And that's a good feeling. It's probably a good feeling within your community to have that. But that feeling's not worth that long term. Like, you know what's right for them long term. So to me, I just feel like that's a little bit of a mistake. But obviously I haven't been in there, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And why would you limit your options? You know, give you like the big thing in Florida, guys never wanted to leave Florida, and there's so many good schools out there. So for me, it was like, get out there and you know, go somewhere, get some change, and
I read a stat, Haas, that it's 90% of kids that commit before their senior year of high school to a Division I school to play baseball. 90% of the kids that commit before their senior year, after their freshman year of college, they will not be at that school. And unfortunately, MJ is part of that 90%. And we're not victims. I told my son, I'm not raising a victim, man. Look at it and be grateful and move on. But it's real. It's out there. So, yeah.
Just play, right?
Just play.
It is cool to go to the big time school, and it's got to feel good. I'm sure you're getting a couple more free T-shirts and all that, but just go play.
That's right.
That's got to be something, like, for guys, like, you can't take that long of a time off. That's why it killed me. And I was so proud of the Royals too, because, you know, during that 2020 season, there was a lot of guys that didn't have the opportunity to play professional baseball. And, you know, Kansas City didn't cut anybody short. Dayton was Dayton, you know what
Dayton
I mean?
Moore being Dayton.
That's exactly what he did. And it's just, I mean, that was a good 2-year period of a lot of kids not playing the game. And that can be I feel like that can be a big hurdle for these kids to get over.
That's right. That's right. And yeah, whether it's a 3-year-old, how's Jack?
Jack's 18 months.
18 months.
So
whether it's a kid getting ready for 2U, or
Nationally ranked 2U.
Exactly. We can start a 2U league.
We're grading babies now. Let's go. Come on.
Yeah. Or a 19-year-old kid that wants to play, or a young kid named Bobby Witt Jr., who was a first-round pick that wanted to simply go play. If he was in another organization, he probably would have been shut down. But Dayton Moore, being the leader that he was, that you guys were blessed to play for, he said, no, we're not going to cut kids. We're going to let them play baseball. And Bobby benefited from that. He got to play and face big league pitchers. And, you know, next year he's ready to go in the big league. So
what's MJ doing now? That was December. Since then, what's he?
So he came home and that's what he said. He could have went to another D1, but the rules are you have to sit out for a year. But he's like, Dad, I want to play baseball. I want to go play baseball. And just yesterday, when Haas asked me to come on the show, I said, hey man, I'd love to be on the show. You've been a mentor for my son. You're one of his heroes in life. You tell me where and when, and I'll be there. And earlier that day, he's at some junior college out in East County, East County, San Diego, Grossmont. And he's playing baseball. And about 30 minutes before Haas asked me to come on the show, MJ had hit a home run. So I said, hey, man, look at number 35. Of course I'll be on your show.
Let's go. That
so
is amazing.
he's getting to play baseball. So it's a blessing. I'd rather, I think LSU might be the number one school in the country right now. I'd rather have a kid playing JUCO baseball at some no-name school that you've never heard of, or rather than sitting on the bench just hanging out at the top place in America to play baseball as you. So
reminds me of kind of a little bit your story where you're just like, you know what, the situation that I have, whatever happened to happen, I'm going to go play baseball. I still love the game. I'm just going to go do it.
And the crazy part now is that the talent that's coming through is incredible. At every level you see, JUCOs are now talent levels. Guys are getting signed all over the place. Guys are transferring all over the place. It's just what's benefiting from the nationally ranked 8U is the quality of baseball that's coming through. Honestly, it's just when the young guys come through, it's just they're a different breed. Even you noticed that when you were at the end of your rope, so to speak, with Tatis and guys like that.
Absolutely. There's so much more that's accessible for these kids. You go on YouTube, you can follow what these guys do away from the field, their off season. So that's why I truly believe we got these young 20-year-olds that are coming up and having the success that they're having. And, Fernando was raised in a big league clubhouse, so that had something, I'm sure that had to help a little bit. And, but Sue and I always talk about the guys that you play with and you're in a locker room with that have the ability to separate away from the field and the field. Away from the field, positive, you're just, you're you. And then when you're on the field, you got that fire in you at that same
light
time.
switch.
You've charged them out a couple of times. One time, I know for a fact. You had that fire. So, how were you able to separate that? And, it's tough when you're performing in front of a lot of people. You can react a certain way. And I'm sure those moments where you reacted maybe a little too animated that you thought was something that wasn't you. You learned from it. But that separation, how are you so good at maintaining that?
You asked a question. I think maybe you should be the one to answer this question because, I spoke with Trevor Hoffman in San Diego, and he told me about the impact that you had on that culture, that clubhouse. You were the reason why the team was going to the playoffs. And when the San Diego Padres had their descent was when the rumor mill started that they were going to trade you. And the players internally, especially Manny and Toddy, those were guys that you transformed their careers because of your leadership. And it goes back to that book, that Season of Life. What's your job, son? It's to love my teammates. That's it. And as a teammate, I felt it was so important. I grew up with a family of 8 kids. So, a little scrap here and there was nothing wrong with it. You're still going to eat next to them because you love them. You're going to, try to iron things out. And as a teammate, I always wanted to help my teammates know that I love them. I was willing to fight them to help them be their best if they needed it. And I was willing to fight our opponents if they ever disrespected my teammates. I was literally willing to lay down my life for my teammates. And you guys know Zach Greinke, right? Yeah. Zach is, we got to get him on the show. We got to get him that 3,000 strikeout this year, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Zach, I played with Zach the first 4 years of his career. And Zach was incredible, battled some anxiety, and I'm so proud of him. He became courageous and spoke out, and he's helped so many people, and he's such a great man, and I love him so much. But one day Zach came up to me, and he says, Sweeney, you come in the locker room, and I was an older, established captain of the team player, and Zach was a young 19-year-old kid throwing 97 miles an hour K-ball in the world. And he's like, I see you come in the locker room at 1 o'clock and you know that this guy's going through a divorce. This guy's, his dad's putting all the pressure in the world on him. This guy's got a sick kid in the hospital. You're praying for him and you're getting this kid ready to get married and all this stuff. And he's like, Mike, I like to know how good you would be if you were a complete selfish jerk. And I'm like, is that supposed to be a compliment, Zach? And he's like, yeah. If you just came in and said at 1 o'clock, I'm going to go get a massage. I'm going to go to the batting cage. I'm going to go watch video and just be tunnel vision. And I said, honestly, Zach, what makes me so good is that I pour into my teammates so that they can be their best, so that I know at 7:10, I play with freedom because it's a selfless thing. I know I'm going to be ready. And me pouring into my teammates helped me to know that I'm helping them be their best. And as a team, we're going to be our best. So, Haas, I know that's what you did. Pete, when you came over to Kansas City, I remember driving in from the Wigwam to the stadium together, and you talking about what the impact that you're having on the guys. It was a joy to call you a teammate, even though I didn't get to strap it on with you guys to be a leader and a mentor. But those are the things that you guys did. I mean, maybe share with your audience. They're probably sick of hearing me.
No, they're not. Trust me, they've heard a lot of my stories only go so far.
Oh no,
man! I'm the same. I told the Holes the other day that I couldn't afford to wait until a couple of weeks into spring training to sign, because it was so important for me to get into a clubhouse and establish who I was as a person, rather than what I can just do on the field, because that was where most of my value came. And it was at the end of my career, throughout my whole career. Like I said, I extended the middle part of my career because I was a good teammate and a good clubhouse guy, and I was able to get guys in good moods, and I was so grateful for that. And then when I got to Kansas City, I felt the same way, but I was a little older, so it shifted to a mentor role / make sure I can get in there and establish my personality and make sure I'm not rubbing guys the wrong way. So
awesome.
I think we talk about it, the unmeasurables, and that's one of those things that you can't quantify, you can't measure. It's not a statistic you can read. And teams are starting to figure that out and value that. Hence the reason you're in there having the impact you're having.
Oz, growing up, obviously, whether it be Kansas City, Boston, San Diego especially, but especially Kansas City and San Diego, you were there so long. People rave about you, said you're the best teammate they ever had. Who were some of your mentors when you first got to the big leagues internally in that locker room? And then who taught you what it meant to be a great teammate? Because, guys that I was blessed to play with, they were mentors of me, then I became it. Who are the guys for you, and who are the ones that taught you to be that great teammate?
So when I was young, Matt Trainer was a guy. He would, so when we would buy these $5 seats at the Marlin games, it was called the Fish Tank.
Yeah.
We'd all the way up in the top row. Not a lot of people would go to the game, so we would go down and kind of sneak towards the bottom by the bullpen there. And Matt Trainer was always in the bullpen, and he had his shin guards on, and he would have his chest protector on, but his sweater over his chest protector. And guys would be warming up, and he'd be blocking balls. And me and my buddies were like, dude, Trainer's a beast. He's not even using a chest protector. That's our guy. Look at Trainer. So we started this little fan club for Trainer, where every time we go to the game, we go down there and be like, Trainer, you're the man. So I got called up to Kansas City. Trainer was in that locker room. Got to connect with him a little bit, which was unreal. The dinner, we talked about being that veteran guy wanting to do this for a younger guy. Yep. My second year, I ended up hurting myself. I think it was my wrist in spring training. So I'm breaking spring training about 2 weeks after the team. So I stay in extended. Alex Gordon was hurt at the same time. Flies out with me to Wilmington to go on a rehab assignment. Takes me in the rental car to the airport, goes to the front desk, upgrades my flight to first class with him. Took me under his wing for like 2 days, took me to dinner, took me to lunch, and just being around him gave me that feeling of like, I want to do this for somebody one day. And we always talk about with Kansas City, that family atmosphere, and me signing at 18, 19 years old, playing in the minor leagues. These are key years of my life, and to be around other guys that are just good people and doing things the right way, it made me grow up so much faster. And now doing this, we've all kind of had our gut punch, so to say, in life. And my time in San Diego, you shared your stories earlier about being away from the game for 8 years. So not only now, because I'm fortunate to be in contact with your son, MJ, but now we feel like we can reach other kids that maybe don't know a big leaguer and can log on with that accessibility like we're talking about, and share some stories, show some vulnerability, and continue to give back like you've continued to do after your career.
I love it.
Do you guys think we talk about analytics all the time and being able to measure and quantify the unquantifiable? Do you think there will be a time the teams are trying to figure out the X factor, the team camaraderie, the leadership factor? Like, how many wins is this guy's personality worth? Like the glue guy, that's his leadership. Do you think people are going to try to quantify that, or have they already been attempting it?
I honestly don't think you can. That's the only thing. You can feel it when you're in it. I'm sure you've been in clubhouses where you've been in. Everybody goes out, they hang out, they enjoy being. It's a thrill to show up to work every day because you love the guys you're around, and that doesn't happen every year. And you can definitely feel it at the start of spring training. You can definitely feel it at the end of spring training. You can pick it up. Obviously, you've seen teams gather momentum, but it's very tough to win if you don't like each other. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, when a couple of years ago we had a dinner with some of the young Kansas City Royals players, and they were trying to do like almost like an algorithm, create an algorithm to see what kind of player a person was, what type of person character-wise he was in a clubhouse. And Haas, you're either a positive, you're an even-keeled player, or you're a negative. But they were trying to throw a number on it, so they said like Haas, not only are you a positive, but how many people are you going to impact in that clubhouse? So the top of the mark was a +5 player. And Sandy, whatever, I would say for sure you're a +5 player. And then there are guys that we identified as even players, and the guys that were -3 or 4s. And the cool part of going back to Bobby Witt Jr. So talk about humility, and it's the root of all virtue. And so we're going around the table asking these young players that we do at these dinners, just trying to get to know them, is, hey, based on this, we're trying to create an algorithm of creating a great atmosphere in a clubhouse. Obviously you need talent, but you need leaders like Eric Hosmer. You need glue guys like Peter Moylan. How would you identify yourself as a player? So we're here with some young players, some young superstars like Bobby Witt Jr. and some veteran players. And it comes to Bobby Witt Jr. And he goes, yeah, guys, I'm probably like a -2 in the clubhouse. I could be more assertive. I could be this and that. And before I could speak, a veteran, hey, Junior, shut up. He's like, dude, you are a +5 player, and here's why. Whether you strike out or hit a home run or make an error, make a dive and play, you're always the same kid. When you walk in that locker room, whether you had a rough, conversation with your dad, or whether something's going on off the field, you walk through that door, you are the same kid every day. The way you hustle at a ground ball, man, it inspires the old guys. So I don't know if they're ever gonna put a quantitative value on character, but there's proofs in the pudding. What happened when doggone the Royals lost you? It was a bellyache for a long time. We missed your leadership. When the San Diego Padres treated you in a way that never should have been treated, a superstar that the teammates loved you. They were fighting for you. The proof's in the pudding. They took a big nosedive. So I think, it's good to have smart people in front office positions, but the team that won the World Series last year, the Texas Rangers, they have a guy that graduated Princeton that's probably the smartest guy in baseball, but he also pitched in the big leagues 15 years. So, see why that's a perfect combination. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a fluke that he hired Dayton Moore and within the first year they go out and win a World Series. There is value in character, and they see that. There's also value in data.
I think I'm thinking about the word force multiplier. A person who's a force multiplier, not only are you good at what you do, but you take other people to the next level. And it could be a teammate, it could be the security guards, it could be just you walk into the room. There's one time I was interviewing for a job with a team. And there's a question I don't like to get asked in interviews around the role of a process development coach. The question is, how do you measure your effectiveness? I hate that question because I'm like, I don't know that answer. I honestly cannot answer. And so I like to ask it first. So I asked the general manager, I said, how are you going to measure my effectiveness? And I saw him look at his assistants. They're all looking at each other like, does anybody have an answer to that? And he thought about it a little bit, and he said something that at the time I was like, what kind of answer is that? But now looking back, I'm like, that is a great answer. He goes, I'll know how effective you are by how the players and coaches respond to you when you walk into the clubhouse.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa. He goes, we'll all see when you walk into the room, and we'll see if the players like, I don't want to be seen talking to that guy, or he'll say, hey, what up? Or if they bust your chops or they make fun of you or whatever, he goes, we'll know. And it's really neat to see, because sometimes you just don't know. No, that's a really good point. Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
I'm sure you still experience that in TV, Pete, like being able to cover guys and seeing guys coming in from visiting teams that you play for, and the response that they give you when they see you and how fired up they are.
It is cool. It's 5 years on, and I was able to work in the media and be able to be on the field with guys that are exactly right, who I had either played with or played against, and talk to on a different level too, which is also cool. When it's just player to player, you get a certain way, but as a broadcaster, I felt like I learned more about baseball, and especially pitching, once I stopped playing. I don't know if I was able to watch other people's that weren't just a two-pitch guy, so that allowed me to expand my maybe thought process as a pitcher, because I wasn't having to do it as much. Did you pick up anything when you stopped playing?
Well, I couldn't pick up your fastball, your Invisa sinker, or your Invisa slider. I mean, you kind of make it sound like, I was just a guy that pitched 15 years in the big leagues from Australia with 2 pitches.
We were
throwing
underhand today too. You were an absolute baller. Don't you start the talk with me. You had 3 years where you were getting MVP votes, your All-Stars. Don't talk about me. Talk about you. When you stopped playing, what did you learn? Go.
So what I learned, Pete, is that there are 2 types of teammates. Mm-hmm. When you share a locker with someone, when you share life with someone, one of 2 things can happen when you see them down the road in life. You're gonna see them across a stadium, sitting with your kids eating popcorn, and if you love that person, if he was a good teammate, after a game, he's gonna run over in the stands and give you a hug. Or you're gonna see a guy that wasn't a great teammate, and you're gonna say, hey, honey, see that guy over there on the 2 tables over? I played with him for 7 years, believe it or not, in the big leagues. And you're like, there we go. Like, the difference between a good teammate is you're gonna, what do you call it, the value, the quantitative value of a person is you're gonna run through a brick wall to give that person a hug, the person that was a great teammate, the one that should be a +5 player value, type of player you should build a team around, or the teammate that wasn't a great teammate, you're gonna be like, ooh, hey honey, see that guy over there, I played with him, but you're not gonna wanna embrace him. I think that's maybe the quantitative value in your emotions and your expression of how you respond to that person when you see him.
Can you learn that? Or are you born with it?
I was annoying, as I can fully admit that I was the guy that tried too hard to make people like him first when I got first to the big leagues, and I had to learn how to take it easy and calm it down a little bit, and that's what was part of my growing. I definitely learned that.
Who helped you with that awareness?
It's the guys that were there early on. It's even guys that you wouldn't even hear about, the guys that were in AAA that were sort of had been there before and were able to give me a little bit of a heads up as to what was going on. And yeah, I've spoken multiple times. I have a big personality, and sometimes it can be received the wrong way, but it's nothing but love and wanting to make someone next to me a better person.
For me, it's like how can you flood the building with just the right good people? People with different styles. We talk about there's not one way. Like when I was in spring training in Kansas City and being in Kansas City full season, you, Jason Kendall, would be around us all the time. And you talk about 2 amazing people, different styles, different ways, different people, different upbringings. So there's so many good people in one building that can relate to different people. And some people share a connection where, hey man, like you're a little more relatable to me. Yeah. And it's perfect because in Kansas City, there were so many different options and everyone was always super cool. But when you're around someone that you're relating to and you have that connection with, I just feel like not only do you guys have the respect from being former players, but now to share day-to-day stuff with them and be around them in a building like that, there's so many different ways that you can pick up things from people.
I got a real quick Jason Kendall story. And
Love
want
it.
to talk about.
I think we all do. I think we all have great Jason Kendall
You want to
stories.
talk about like filling someone with confidence. I got called up, and Jason Kendall literally just walked up to me while he was hitting fungos, which he did every single day. He was out there just grinding with the guys every single day. I was catching up, and he just said to me, hey, you're my pick to click this year. And I'm like, I had been out of the game for 3 years, and he's like, you're my pick to click this year. I was like, holy shit. Someone in this organization believes in me, man. It's more than just the guys wanting to fill a spot. Like, he believes in me. Let's go.
Wow.
It was really cool.
And he knows what he's doing when he does that. He means that.
He means
and he's going to find a way to reach out to Pete and tell him that. And that's the stuff that just boosts these guys up. And it's priceless.
I was 37 years old. I still needed that.
Yeah.
That's so true. I think it's so powerful, just everything that you're saying. I think, especially in sports, men, competitive, there's power in just speaking life to someone and to be able to point out what they're good at. I think a lot of us, we have this unconscious competence where we have these skills, we have these talents, we have these gifts that we go about living our lives, but when someone points it out and says, hey, you're a really good listener, or hey man, I love the way you work, or those kind of things, to sit in these chairs and to hear guys compliment each other, like, whoa, like it's really neat, because sometimes you have no idea how much that person at 37 years old needs those simple words could really pick somebody up. And so a lot of times a player, so I'll be sitting in the dugout with guys, and I love when players talk well behind guys' backs. Like, man, he's nasty. Man, I love how he does it. Let's see his hard 90 or whatever. And then I would always give the invitation, go tell him that. Go tell him that. Does he know that? Does he know you feel that way? No, go tell him. Go. He needs you to go tell him that. And so it's really cool when you hear someone say something good about someone, encourage them. Hey, go tell him that to his face.
And you work so much with guys that are playing sports like tennis and golf. That's what makes the team environment it's just something that you can't repeat. You can't get anywhere else. Being amongst the guys of 25, 26, whatever it is, and fighting for something that's like a World Series, you can't replicate it.
That's so true. It reminds me of going back to when you were talking about MJ and being a father. So early in my career, about a decade, it was 2012 or so. So I was really focusing on working with youth athletes. So a dad texts me, or he calls me up and he goes, hey, can you work with my son? We're gonna come to the hitting cages, and I would just wanna give you the breakdown of like what my son needs in the mental game. So son sitting in one chair, dad sitting in another chair. Dad says, okay, Justin, I'll explain it to you. Son is 16 years old. And the dad goes, well, first of all, the reason we're sitting here is because I love my son so much. But he's just struggling a lot. He's struggling. I know he's working really hard, but he can't transfer it to the games. He's so hard on himself. He needs some tools for confidence or focus or something. And I just know that you're going to be able to help him. And so I go to the son and I said, what do you think about that? And he's not looking at me. He's just staring at his dad afterwards. And he's just kind of like shocked looking at his dad. Son just kind of, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, what is he saying? And then the son looks at his dad and he goes, are you serious? And the dad goes, what are you talking about? He goes, are you serious what you just said? And the dad goes, yeah, you're working hard and I think these tools are really gonna help you. He goes, no, that you love me. And the dad goes, wait, what? He goes, yes. I've never heard you say that.
Wow.
That was the first thing he said. He goes, I love my son. And then he went on. And then the dad goes, of course I do. And the son goes, what a relief. He goes, I'm here trying to play hard because I think if I'm a better baseball player, you're gonna love me more. And then I'm sitting here watching this conversation and I just say, just a suggestion, maybe just, I think we're good. I think we're good. No joke, about 3 weeks later, I get an email from the dad in all caps and exclamation marks. He goes, I had no idea that simply reminding my son that I love him, and it doesn't matter how he plays on the field, I'm still gonna love him. That's one of my favorite stories of all time, and it goes back to what you said. Let your kids, let the people know that you love them, that you care about them, and it's amazing that how much free they can be.
Way to put a bow on it. This was all unscripted. I just walked through the door and gave you guys a hug, and you guys started rolling with 10 cameras in the room. We didn't know that you were going to throw a dang haymaker home run to walk off the set.
Mic drop.
Yeah, mic drop.
That's crazy. This is a fun conversation. It's such a cool topic.
Yeah.
So I told Sue before, I'm like, Sweeney is the most positive dude you'll ever meet. And I could never thank you enough for not only the baseball advice you gave me, but the advice in life and now moving on to being a father and just to follow in your footsteps. So Sweeney Dog, I love you, my man. You're the best. And
I love you too, brother. It's a joy to be on.
You still. I'm gonna be texting you, calling you all the time. So get ready for it.
Love you, brother. Proud of you guys.